So hello, my name is Liisa Pakosta and I'm working as a Gender Equality and Equal Treatment Commissioner in Estonia. I would rather prefer that the name is Equal Opportunities Commissioner, which is actually the name used in many countries. Because the thing that our office is working with is to check the laws, but also to analyze the concrete cases. We also take in the cases whether a person has been discriminated or not, and whether the opportunities are equal or not. Quite often we actually find out that the person thinks he or she is discriminated, but the actual barrier is a law or regulation that makes a barrier. So it's not illegal when you have a gender pay gap. The problem in society is that very often, far too often, the average salary of men is much higher than the average salary of women, although we all go in equal basis to the labor market, or do we? Because of the huge disparity between the average salary of men and the average salary of women, we have a problem in a society that the barriers for women are there, because if both sexes, the men and the women, go to work every morning, and in the end of the month the average salary is different, there is a social problem, there might be a legal problem, and there definitely is an economical problem. The statistical boards have slightly different methodologies when they find out the statistical gender pay gap number. There is Eurostat, who is comparing in the same way all the EU countries, taking into account only people who work full-time, who work in bigger companies, who work in private sector. So quite big part of people are not included into this study, but it's fully comparable between all the EU countries. It means, for example, that Malta has a very nice number, a very small number, and Estonia, as you know, has the biggest number. In Estonia, women work full-time, much more than in many other countries. In Estonia, we have a huge mining industry where men go underground and have high salaries, but women do not, and have small salaries at bookkeeping department. These are only few examples would explain the complexity behind these numbers. But the problem is that whatever methodology you choose, you will have the same result. The gender pay gap is better number for men and much worse number for women. So the Estonian highest number, according to Eurostat, might be explained by some of the factors I named, but even if we do not use this methodology, we have the gender pay gap. Whether it is higher or not than in other countries, that is now another question, because we can't compare these numbers. But the gender pay gap issue is not taking into account all the women that are fully dependent from their husbands. It means that women who do not go to work at all, and the Eurostat number is not taking into account women who work part-time, which is, for example, an issue for Netherlands, which also has a very nice number. 73% of women in Netherlands work part-time. Estonian big gender pay gap number has some reasons we know, and these reasons are, for example, that we have the highest gender pay segregation at the labour market. It means that in Estonia there are far more women in one areas and far more men working in other areas, like I gave an example from the minings in the eastern Estonia. So in these fields where women dominate, the salaries are lower than in these fields where men dominate. The other reason, what has also been addressed by the European Commission, for example, is that in Estonia there has been a very long period where mothers can stay home with a paid period, but also we have a huge problem with kindergarten places. So it means that you are already a very long period home, 1.5 years or even more, and then you have an unsure period after that. You don't know when you can go back to the labour market because you don't know when you get the kindergarten place from the local government, although the law says that you should get it the next working day when your child is 1.5 years old. So these are just a few systematic examples which illustrate that is the choice free. If you don't get a kindergarten place, you don't know when you get your kindergarten place, you can't go back to work, your choice is not free. As I said, we as an Equality Commissioner, we get complaints from people. Actually, the biggest number of complaints is from the area of gender and work life. So how to combine family and work is the biggest area of complaints we get. So not all of those are directly related to gender pay gap, but if we analyze them, they all are related to gender pay gap, maybe not in a very direct way. So for example, if a mother does not get a suitable kindergarten place for her child and cannot go back to work, it is an indirect discrimination from the local government side because the local government is responsible of giving this kindergarten place. Or for example, if a mother of 2 kids has been away from her work, she wants to go to a training session during her maternity leave, but this is not allowed by the law. The law says that you either can rest or you go fully to work. So you can't choose, but you can't take part in a training. So it means when you go back to work after all these years, you are not so highly qualified as your colleagues because they had the possibility to take part in the training. So these are just a few examples of the regulations and laws which we are addressing as a gender equality body. We address the concrete barriers that are out there and that do not allow people to use their free choice. The interesting thing is actually that we get also complaints from young fathers. Statistically, we see that the gender pay gap is highest or biggest among young mothers. Very much of this is related to stereotypes, what we have taught fertile-aged women, but we see that the same problems attack the young fathers who act like mothers or who start taking care of their kids like mothers do. So it might be that we do not have a gender pay gap, but we have a family obligations pay gap. I haven't studied it thoroughly. I know all the countries actually have problems with the gender pay gap issues and topics. But it might be that there is a special thing about Estonia and other formerly occupied countries, that it was a period when women were so eager to be home with the kids which was not possible during the Soviet era. And something from this is living in us, that we think that a good mother stays home with the kids. And I have met actually an entrepreneur from Eastern Viruma who said that, yeah, of course I pay more salary to this very good father. He has 3 kids, he has to take care of the family. Yeah, we have here a young lady also, but I very much hope that she will get pregnant soon. So I give her a warm room to stay in until she gets pregnant. Actually, it is a modern lie, because when you go back to history, it has been all the time that men and women have worked equally. And also men and women have been taking care of the kids. That's very much case for the Estonia as well. So it's a short time, very modern understanding that women should stay home without any other obligation than taking care of one child. You don't have to do the cow milking, you don't have to wash with your hands, which took 4 hours for one bunch of textiles, and so on. You just are home with your kid. So this is historically not the thing. So it's a very short time modern understanding that women should be just home holding the babies. If you go to the museum, Eesti Rahva Museum, you will have there a lot of pictures of women working and then having kids somewhere there, or a little bit elderly kids taking care of the child, or it's grandparents or uncles taking care of the child, and the woman is working. So maybe this short historical momentum we have now affects the gender pay gap understanding. But if we look at the history on the broader scale, we see that it's very normal that both men and women work and take care of the kids. So if we now look on this equation, there is actually very many constraints that disable women, but in a growing number of men actually, to act according to their free will. If you have a barrier as a parent combining your work and family life, you will face a gender pay gap. And that's a problem.